Hi, I'm Jackie Jordan, and this is number 0693, the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder, and it comes to you right now.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
Now, it's time for an eclectic mix of interviews and some of the oddest news stories you'll ever hear. It's the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder.
Hey there, hi there, ho there. Peter Anthony Holder here with you, and yes, this is indeed another edition of the Stuff File program, number 0693. And coming up on this edition of the Stuff File program, you'll meet undersea explorer and marine biologist Mark Barnette, who found a large chunk of the Space Shuttle Challenger at the bottom of the ocean floor.
We found these red rubber panels, and when I saw that, it just seemed that it was the same size as the heat-resistant tiles. So I kind of had an inkling of what it was. I took a picture of one of the recovered panels. We recovered it for diagnostic reasons and sent the picture to a friend of mine who happened to be a two-time space shuttle astronaut, Bruce Melnick. Within a few minutes of him getting a text, he responded back and told me exactly what it was, and it was a positive confirmation that this was indeed Challenger.
Janeen and Michael Damian, the former Young and the Restless star, and his wife, produced and directed the Netflix Christmas movie Falling for Christmas. What part of their working relationship as a married couple would make an excellent rom-com?
Oh, I torture her all the time.
I was going to say, our entire life would make a movie. People say it all the time that we should make a movie about ourselves. We're too busy.
I'm constantly razzing Janine, and we have a lot of fun.
Michael is an absolute pleasure to work with. He always keeps things light. I tend to be the serious one of the family. So,
well, in comedy, you've got the straight man, right?
Yes, I'm the straight man.
You've got to have the balance, right, for comedy.
Marc Hartzman, the curator of WeirdHistorian.com, has another weird story of the month. This one deals with George Adamski, who claimed to have several contacts with aliens.
There was a group of people known as contactees, and these were people who claimed to have contact with people from other planets. This kind of stemmed off of the UFO phenomena, the flying saucer craze that started in 1947. So naturally, people started meeting people from these flying saucers and having these amazing, fantastic stories of the beings that they met, oftentimes from Venus. And so George Adamski was one of the most vocal and popular contactees, and he claimed to have met a Venusian on November 20th, 1952, almost exactly 70 years ago.
And there's lots and lots of Stuff File news, and of course, an idiot of the day. The guest slater, the person who told you this was show number 0693, was Jackie Jordan, a film and TV producer who runs TV Guestspurt. And I've got to mention right here, through the course of the years of this program, and even before on my old radio show, I've worked with Jackie as a person who books guests on radio and television shows, and she is just top-notch with excellent clients that have enhanced this and previous shows. So thank you very much, Jackie, for doing that. The Stuff File program is a listener-supported, fan-funded radio show that depends on you for our success. Join us at patreon.com to help make this show an even bigger and better radio experience. Now, let's get right to the stuff. On October 29th, as Catherine Burleson and a friend walked Burleson's 13-year-old corgi Emma at Trinidad State Beach in California, a pack of 10 standard poodles burst from a nearby car and raced toward them. And yes, they were standard poodles as opposed to, automatic ones. Anyway, Burleson leaned down to pick up Emma, but she wiggled out of Burleson's arms just as the pack attacked. Said Burleson, "I thought Emma and I were going to be killed." To make things even weirder, during the incident, Burleson felt her finger being bitten, and when she looked up, it was the poodle's owner, Frank Mallet, who had her finger in his mouth. Mallet later told her he thought that he was biting one of his dogs. Emma was severely injured and underwent emergency surgery for which she is still healing. Mallet reportedly owns a service dog company that, according to the website, places dogs with children at little or no cost through the help of donations and volunteers. Wow. If they can do that much damage to Burleson, imagine what they can do to children. And when it comes to Mallet biting down on something, if he can't tell the difference between a human finger and a poodle, should he be training dogs? I mean, this whole thing is like a bad horror movie. Night of the Living Poodle. When fur flies, the fun begins. On October 19th, archaeologists in Turkey believe they have found the tomb of the real St. Nicholas. The grave was discovered beneath the floor of a 7th or 8th century church in the country's Antalya province, and St. Nicholas of Myra, the inspiration of our modern-day Santa Claus, allegedly served as bishop there. Scientists say the site will be protected and prepared for display. Well, 'tis the season. Remind me again, what exactly is the cutoff date between archaeology and grave robbing? Yeah. A turf war of sorts broke out late on November 19th in downtown San Diego. Interloper hot dog vendors from Los Angeles had set up outside Petco Park Stadium where Duke Dumont was playing, and the San Diego vendors weren't having it. A brawl involving 10 to 15 people ensued, with one 35-year-old man being stabbed in the back during the fray. Police arrested 21-year-old Yanni Yates in the assault, which resulted in non-life-threatening injuries. No buns were injured in the incident.
Wiener Schnitzel, the world's most wanted wiener.
Brandy Batone of Plano, Texas, who argued successfully in June that her unborn fetus qualified her to drive in the HOV lane, is now the namesake of House Bill 521 in Texas's 2023 legislative session. The Brandy bill, introduced by State Rep. Briscoe Kane, states that a pregnant driver is entitled to use any HOV lane in the state. Texas Penal Code stipulates that an unborn child is considered a person at every stage of gestation from fertilization until birth. If the Brandy bill is signed into law, it will take effect in September. Now, I'm not going to step on the third rail of this issue, but I will say it has come to this. I'm just looking forward to the myriad of ways that this law will be abused. And finally, in this section of Stuff File News, before we get to our first guest here in this edition of the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder, speaking of driving with child on board, on October 26th, 12-year-old Aiden was picked up unexpectedly by his dad from a birthday party in Los Angeles and was told that they were going to a park. Instead, the man started driving to Las Vegas, and Aiden became concerned because he believed his dad was driving drunk. The fact that Dad was wearing a Las Vegas Raiders helmet might have been a clue. Aiden called 911 and explained his situation and told the dispatcher the car has Raider plates on the front and in the back. Officers finally caught up with the car, and Aiden's dad faces charges of DUI and child abuse. Well, you know what those Raider fans are like. I mean, it says it much like a roadmap in their own Raider anthem.
The autumn wind is a raider, pillaging just for fun. He'll knock you round and upside down and laugh when he's conquered and won.
Anyway, let's get to our first guest here in this edition of the Stuff File program, shall we? A team of History Channel divers working on a series called The Bermuda Triangle Into Cursed Waters were looking for undersea wreckage of a World War II plane. However, what they found was a large 20-foot section of NASA's Space Shuttle Challenger, which exploded soon after liftoff back in 1986. One of those divers is undersea explorer and marine biologist Mark Barnette, and he joins us right now via Zoom from Florida. Hi, Mike.
Hey, Peter. How you doing?
Just tickety-boo. Thanks for doing this. Going back to the beginning, the show is, again, the Bermuda Triangle Into Cursed Waters. And as I mentioned, you were looking for a World War II plane. Why were you looking? Were you looking for a specific World War II plane that you thought was down there?
Yes, we were actually doing some reconnaissance. We had a bunch of targets that we've gotten over the past couple of decades since I've lived here in Florida, and these targets are basically coordinates, latitude and longitude, that we get from a variety of sources, such as fishermen, geological surveys. I mean, just whatever sources I can tap into, I use that. And what these numbers are basically indications there might be structure on the bottom. And this could be geology, there could be shipping containers that have fallen off a ship, or they could be shipwrecks or aircraft. And it's one of those things that, we just know there's potentially something there, but we won't know until we actually go and dive on it. And to do this, it takes a lot of time, because a lot of times these numbers are bogus. There's actually nothing there whatsoever, or they can be sanded over or moved considerable distances over if a hurricane comes through. So it's always a gamble. And we had some time to work through basically an area of the ocean that we wanted to kind of clear the board, so to speak. And the reason we're looking in this particular area is back in 1945, when Flight 19 went missing. The triangulation from radar put it about 80 to 100 miles off Cape Canaveral. So the Navy dispatched a PBM Martin Mariner search and rescue aircraft that left from Banana River Naval Air Station, which is present-day Patrick Air Force Base near Cape Canaveral. And the flight path would have taken it right over this area. And so we weren't actually positive we'd find anything, but it's one of those things that to remove all doubt, it's a process of elimination. We had to work through all these numbers. And so that's what we were doing. And we had about a dozen or so numbers that day, and we were on the 8th number, and the other ones just didn't really pan out. And this one target marked some fish, very low lying, so it looked like debris potentially. But when we actually splashed in on it, we found something that was aviation adjacent. We weren't really positive it was what we're looking for, but it was interesting enough that we wanted to come back when we had better conditions and better visibility to dive on it.
So when did you realize, what did you first think it was when you spotted the shuttle or wreckage of the shuttle?
Well, on that first dive, it was really bad visibility. My dive partner, Jimmy Adamski, had to basically work by feel, and he actually noticed these red panels that lined the visible surface. Well, not really visible, basically what he could feel, and they were square, almost like carpeted or rubber tiles. And when he recovered that, I kind of had an indication or inkling of what it was. Basically, immediately, I figured this could potentially be Challenger related, because we were actually using data from the Challenger explosion, the debris search from 1986. So obviously, right in the wake of that disaster, NASA worked with multiple agencies like the U.S. Navy, the Coast Guard. They contracted a lot of private companies to go out and find all the debris from Challenger, including the orbiter and the solid rocket boosters, to help with their investigation of what actually led to the disaster. And during the process, they actually marked a whole bunch of things that weren't Challenger related, and including like geology or just junk. And the reason we're there, to kind of back up a little bit, is one of the targets they marked it's listed as aircraft propeller. So again, that kind of got our attention, and so that's why we're there. But again, now fast forward to the actual dive, we found these red panels, like rubber panels, and when I saw that, it just seemed that it was the same size as the heat resistant tiles. So I kind of had an inkling of what it was. I took a picture of one of the recovered panels. We recovered it for diagnostic reasons, and sent the picture to a friend of mine who happened to be a 2-time space shuttle astronaut, Bruce Melnick. And within a few minutes of him getting a text, he responded back and told me exactly what it was, and it was our positive confirmation that this was indeed Challenger.
So I'm assuming that after that point, you got in contact with NASA. What was their response, reaction, and did they take over the collection of the piece?
That's a great question. We actually contemplated that a little bit, because the evidence we had at the at the time. We didn't know how big this section was. We didn't really know what we're dealing with. We wanted to come back to get better documentation, something that they could actually make, the layman or, the subject matter expert could make heads or tails of, because again, this was really bad visibility the first dive. So I think it was a month or two later, we were able to finally get back to the site, and we had phenomenal conditions. We could actually make out just how big this section was. I mean, again, when you're working with limited visibility on the original dive, it's like stumbling around in your closet with the lights off and using just a lighter to light your way. So it's not very effective to really illuminate your total environment. But on the second dive, it was like seeing something in IMAX 3D. We had phenomenal conditions, and again, I think we were able to capture definitive documentation and just damning evidence of what it really was. So there was no doubt that we were indeed on a portion of Challenger. And with that, I used the historical data we had. We took some frame grabs of that footage, and I made basically a special report, basically a summary of our findings that we sent off to NASA for their attention. Through our contact, Bruce Melnick, he gave us the right contact, who's basically the assistant administrator of NASA. And it quickly caught their attention and triggered all this conversations and dialogue between NASA, because we felt it was important. They know what we had found. And so we wanted to, obviously, because of the sensitivity of the disaster, we wanted to proceed with caution and with the proper respect.
How many dives in total did you do to what is now the resting place of a part of Challenger?
So we did that initial dive. That was done in very late February of this year, and then we got back out, I believe it was in May, and that was the dive. You actually see the footage in the premiere episode of the series on History Channel, so you're seeing what we saw, our first dive. And again, because we had, very good evidence of what we thought we had found, and doing any more excavation, I think, was just counterproductive. We didn't want to intrude any more than we had to. And so with that we haven't done any more dives to the site without, 'cause again, we wanted to get NASA's blessing. We wanted them, work with them hand in hand, because this is their property. And obviously because of they had to notify the families. They had to figure out what their options are for dealing with this finding. And so we're still in those kind of discussions now.
How much of the 20-foot section was clearly visible as opposed to being under sand?
So there was about, I think the first measurements, when we got down there, I had a tape measure, and one edge was about 18 foot and the other edge was about 12 foot, or about 12 to 13 foot. And then it was like almost like a triangular, oh geez, I can't believe I just said that, but like a pizza wedge. And the remainder was buried by a coating of sand. It kind of is angled in, so the farther you got into the sand, the deeper it went. So we eventually realized this thing was much larger than 20 foot by 20 foot. We just don't know how much more is hidden under the sand. And that's, again, something that NASA needs to, they want to go back and do, maybe they want to go back and fully assess this portion of Challenger so they can decide what to do next.
Well, you spend a lifetime going down into the ocean and finding wreckages, and in most cases, I'm assuming the wreckage doesn't break up when it initially goes down. But in the case of Challenger, of course it did, because there was an explosion. Do you think there are other parts of Challenger undiscovered that is nearby to what you found?
That's a great question. We do know that, again, using that data I mentioned, that debris search data, that there's basically three major clumps or debris areas. You have the first one being the orbiter, and that's covered, probably spread out by maybe 8 nautical miles by maybe 15 to 20 nautical miles, like a big oval shape. And then farther offshore, you have the two other areas that's where the solid rocket boosters and other material land in deeper water, much deeper water. And we know that NASA recovered probably about 50% or so of the orbiter material. And using all the data around this piece, there's the vast majority of portions of the orbiter that were detected were recovered, except for this one lone piece. And there's a couple other small little pieces that apparently, based on the evidence, were left in place as well. But this seems to be a pretty significant piece, while all the other ones are more like 3 foot by 5 foot, rods or smaller little pieces of debris. But we do know there are most likely other sections out there, but nothing probably that matches this size.
As someone who dives and looks for wreckage, I mean, wreckage obviously is the beginning of a tragedy for someone. That's why the wreckage is down there on the floor. But as someone who is a diver, an explorer, is this the most exciting thing you have found?
Well, yeah, I think this is a different level of discovery for me. I've been on a lot of historical wrecks over my 30-plus year diving career, wrecks that I think a lot of people would recognize. The USS Monitor, the Civil War ironclad. I've been on the RMS Lusitania, which brought the U.S. into World War I. So a lot of things you read about in history books, but this is much different for me, because much more personal, because this is an event that I and many others lived through. I was actually a freshman in high school, and I remember watching this live on TV. So the impact for me was, I think, much more significant than something that a ship that sank 150 to 200 years ago. It's a totally different sensation and a different feeling. I feel more connected in a way to it. So I think this is it's going to be hard to match this. I mean, I don't, there's a lot more wrecks that I want to dive before I call it quits, but it's going to be hard to match this feeling.
People can watch the whole thing by watching the 6-episode series on the History Channel, which is called The Bermuda Triangle into Cursed Waters. Mike, I thank you very much for taking the time to be on the program with us, and congratulations and kudos on the find.
Thank you. Yeah, it was my pleasure speaking with you today. And I think there's been a lot of interest generated in this discovery, again, because so many people lived through this. I mean, this affected a nation, our space program. So there's a lot of pride there. So yeah, I'm happy to share it with folks.
Mark Barnette, who was part of the team of divers who found a 20-foot section of the Space Shuttle Challenger at the bottom of the ocean off the coast of Florida. You can watch the 6-episode History Channel series, The Bermuda Triangle into Cursed Waters. Check your local listings to find out where you can find it or view it on demand. You're listening to the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder.
There's still more guests, more news, and an idiot of the day coming your way on the Stuff File program. Stay tuned. The Stuff File program is a listener-supported, fan-funded radio show that depends on you for our success. Join us at patreon.com to help make this show an even bigger and better radio experience. Sign up and find out about our rewards program. Being a patron doesn't have to be a long-term commitment. There's absolutely no obligation. You could join today and end whenever you'd like. But the time we have your support would be so greatly appreciated. We'd also love to hear your thoughts about the show and even your ideas for rewards. Join us for the ride. Join us at patreon.com/The Stuff File program.
Mishak here. You're listening to my uncle, Peter Anthony Holder. It's radio worth missing your bedtime for. Besides, as my uncle always says, sleep is so highly overrated. Now here's the guy who contributes greatly to my sugar rushes, Peter Anthony Holder.
Thank you, my little rugrat. And still to come on the program, we will talk to soap star Michael Damian and his wife Janeen. They are the producer and director of the Christmas movie Falling for Christmas, starring Lindsay Lohan. That's on Netflix. Also, Marc Hartzman, curator of WeirdHistorian.com, talks about alien encounters. We have an Idiot of the Day coming your way as well, and lots more Stuff File news right here, right now. So let's get right to it. Talk about taking your gaming seriously. Palmer Luckey, a defense contractor and, according to Vice, the father of modern virtual reality, has invented a VR headset that literally presents a life or death outcome. Inspired by the Nerve Gear VR headsets in the anime Sword Art Online, Lucky's headsets features 3 explosive charge modules that detonate and instantly destroy the user's head if the user dies during gameplay. Said Lucky, pumped-up graphics might make a game look more real, but only the threat of serious consequences can make a game feel real to you and every other person in the game. He admits, though, that he needs to keep tinkering. There are a huge variety of failures that could occur and kill the user at the wrong time. Seriously, is there ever a right time? Anyway, he goes on to say, this is why I have not worked up the nerve to actually use it myself. At this point, it is just a thought-provoking reminder of unexplored avenues in game design. Yeah. I've noticed that in the last couple of years, tech billionaires are starting to display virtues found mostly in Bond villains. But the unaptly named Lucky certainly seems to be at the head of the pack. Pardon the pun. In Norway, energy firm Equinor produced its first energy from floating wind turbines on November 13th. The installation, called High Wind Tampen, lies about 87 miles off the coast of Norway, with 11 total turbines, 4 of which will come online in 2023. Ironically, the turbines will be used to produce energy for Equinor's oil and gas fields in the North Sea. Said Geir Tungsvik, the company's executive vice president for projects, drilling, and procurement, this is a unique project, the first wind farm in the world producing oil and gas installations. Really? In 2022, doesn't anyone see the ironic and slightly problematic situation with this innovation? Although I guess any fossil fuel power eliminated, even if it is to create more fossil fuel, can be considered a plus. And after all, who can hate a turbine anyway?
They're noisy. They kill the birds. You want to see a bird graveyard? You just go. Take a look. A bird graveyard? Go under a windmill someday. You'll see more birds than you've ever seen ever in your life.
Oh yeah, that guy. And for the last time, they're not windmills, they're turbines. Anyway, finally in this section of Stuff File News, before we get to our next guest here in this edition of the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder, well, this statement has to be one of the most understated comments of the year. Police Chief Elvin Barron of Southfield, Michigan said, "This is a very unusual way to commit an armed robbery." What he was referring to was a man who booked an Uber to take him to the bank. Once investigators discovered the robber left in an Uber, it was easy to find out who the rider was. Said Barron, "Anytime you get a rideshare, your identity is shared with the driver, who in turn can share it with law enforcement." The Uber's back seat was stained from an exploding dye pack, and when police arrived outside the suspect's apartment building, they found he was red-stained too, along with wads of cash they pulled from his pockets. 42-year-old Jason Christmas was arrested, and an unamused judge set his cash-only bail at $500,000. Christmas explained he took an Uber because his license had been suspended and he didn't want to get in trouble by driving. Wow. Let that thought process sink in for a moment.
Stupid! You're so stupid!
Which reminds me, there's a family story that I mentioned several years ago on my old radio show, and I think it bears repeating now. My uncle was a Montreal taxi driver, and he almost got arrested for accessory to armed robbery because, unbeknownst to him, he took a bank robber to a bank branch, was told to wait outside. The bank robber returned, they left, but were quickly apprehended by a phalanx of police vehicles. What saved my uncle from being actually charged was the fact that the robber didn't hail any taxi on the street. He had called for a cab from his house, and this was back in the days long before Uber and even cell phones. So the guy I mentioned in the Uber story is a modern day moron, but the guy my uncle dealt with is an OG, as in original gangster, or oh God, you're stupid.
Stupid! You're so stupid!
Anyway, let's get to our next guest here in this edition of the Stuff File program, shall we? If you're looking to get into the holiday spirit with a Christmas rom-com, then look no further than the Netflix movie Falling for Christmas, starring Lindsay Lohan. It's produced and directed by the husband and wife team of Janeen and Michael Damian. She directed, he produced, and together they have put the ho-ho-ho into the holidays. Janeen and Michael join us via Zoom from California. Hey, guys.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Just tickety-boo. Thanks very much for taking the time to do this. I had the chance to watch the film. It's a lot of fun. And as I said to you just before we went to air, Tad didn't stand a chance. That's all I'm going to say. I don't want to give anything away, but Tad didn't stand a chance.
Oh, poor Tad. You know, he can't help himself.
How did this film come together for you guys?
Netflix approached us along with Brad Kervoy at Motion Picture Corporation of America, and they had the script and Lindsay attached and asked if we were interested in coming on board. And we had quite a few meetings with everybody to see if we were all on the same page. We all knew that this was really a significant project because it was Lindsay's return to the screen. So it was a very exciting opportunity, and we jumped on board from there.
For those who might not be aware, I mean, if they don't catch the name right off the bat, Michael, of course, you played Danny Romalotti for a long time on the Young and the Restless.
Yes, I love how you stretch the word long time.
Well, hey, I go back to watching soaps back in the 60s, so I go back a long way myself. So is putting together a story like this, I mean, you know, daytime soaps, it's all about love. There's the rom, but not necessarily the com. So is what knowledge did you bring in playing such a role for so many years to a project like this?
Well, first of all, I think it starts with just really learning a lot from the show, from Young and the Restless, and, you know, working with some wonderful directors. You know, I had a chance to work with Gary Marshall on a film, and I saw some amazing, funny, you know, the calm that you were just talking about. Janeen has worked with some amazing directors in a different, you know, field. She was an amazing dancer, but she got a chance to work with people like Coppola, Lucas, and Barry Levinson. So we gained a lot of knowledge, I think, on those two fronts. And then we started making films together, and we've made, you know, Princess for Christmas, Christmas Waltz, and a couple dance films, High Strung and High Strung Free Dance. And then, you know, so we've been working away, learning a lot, learning as we go. And we love the filmmaking business. We love all aspects. We love the writing, the producing, the directing phase. And I think it's just a culmination of working through the years with some wonderfully talented people that have inspired us to constantly elevate and work harder at our game.
What working part of the relationship between the two of you as husband and wife would make an excellent rom-com?
Oh,
I torture her all the time.
I was going to say, our entire life would make a movie. People say it all the time that we should make a movie about ourselves. We're too busy.
I'm constantly razzing Janeen, and so we have a lot of fun.
Michael is an absolute pleasure to work with. He always keeps things light. I tend to be the serious one of the family. So,
well, in comedy, you've got the straight man, right?
Yes, I'm the straight man.
You got to have the balance, right, for comedy.
So tell us about the plot of Falling for Christmas.
It's about a girl who, on the surface, appears to have everything that she could possibly ever want and in her life. And through some Christmas magic and a mishap on a mountaintop, she winds up in losing her memory of who she is and has to sort of discover herself all over again, which ends up being a gift. And she also discovers love along the way and what is really important to her in her life, which is, you know, giving and loving and family and community. And it's a really lovely life lesson for her. And she ends up, happily ever after, which of course we have to have
in all our movies.
Now, Michael, I knew a soap star had to be involved in this, since one of the major plot points is amnesia.
Oh, did your character ever have an amnesia?
No, but I've lost my voice. I had a new kidney put in.
Well, you gave away your kidney.
That's right. I gave away my kidney. No,
Yes.
no, Michael gave his kidney to me.
I thought you gave him your kidney.
No, it was the other way around.
Oh, you know what? I can't keep
But
trying.
but there is a lot of amnesia on soap operas. You're absolutely right.
Amnesia is kind of fun.
Where did the story itself come from? Was this something that was taken from an existing medium, or was it an original script? And how did it come together?
It was an original script written by Jonathan Bennett and Ron Oliver. And how there's certain stories out there that I think that we all know and love and embrace. And I think it's one of those, wink and a nod to the familiar. And then we brought a lot of originality to it. And there's a lot of new elements to this. The amnesia story has been around for a long time, but I think this one is different and it's a modern take on it. So
nobody ever shoots a Christmas film at Christmas. So when and where did you shoot it?
At Christmas.
At Christmas!
You
in
did?
the snow in Utah.
Oh, wow.
10 below zero.
We froze to death.
We all froze together as a frozen family.
So you actually did do this around Christmas time?
We did it. We shot in December.
Yeah, December, and Park City, Deer Valley, Utah, and
Midway,
Utah, and and a lot of real snow and a lot of snow breath coming out of people's mouths, and and Tad freezing out in the snow with Ralph was real.
And speaking of Tad and all the others, how did the cast come together? Because it's a great cast.
Oh, it's such a fun cast. So it all started with Lindsay, and then Cord came on board, and
Cord Overstreet,
who is so fun and wonderful in this movie, and then we found George Young, who is playing Tad, who is such a fantastic actor and beautiful person. And we just
Chase,
and we loved working with him. And then we put him together with Sean Dillingham, who played Ralph, who is, and it was actually some really lovely local cast as well. And Chase Ramsey, who played Terry. We had Jack Wagner, who from the soap world came on board to play the father. And our casting directors were really great, and we had a lot of fun casting this movie.
Who was the fellow that played the role, let's just say, the Santa-like role? I'll just leave it at that.
Oh, that's Bus Riley.
Bus Riley, yeah.
Who actually does, he does moonlight as Santa Claus during Christmas time.
I thought he just hit all the right emotional tones.
They're so sweet. There's something magical about him.
Thank you for saying that, because we felt the same way. And when you talk to him, off camera, he has this. There's something special and magical. There's this warm sound when he speaks. You get this good feeling inside, and we felt that, and we're hoping it would translate to people. So thank you for saying that.
Yes. I didn't mention Olivia Perez and Alejandra Flores, who played the grandmother and the daughter, who were just so special and such little Christmas cookies. I just love those two so much. We loved our cast on this. It was really a magical movie to work on.
The film did reach the right emotional tones. I actually watched the movie alone, which is great, because then I didn't have to explain to anybody why there was certain moisture around my eyes.
Oh,
that's a big compliment. Thank you. Yeah. We did our job then.
Oh yeah, you really, and to be honest, you are working in an area and a medium that has a glut of films around this time. So to stand out, it's got to be kind of special.
Well,
thank you. Well, we tried, and Lindsay Lohan is really special. She is a special talent. I think that we're all so excited about having her back in the fold in the entertainment industry. And I think it all starts with her. She really brought a really, really spectacular performance.
You mentioned that you've done several films before this, several Christmas films. Have you done a Christmas film with Netflix before?
No, this is our first film with Netflix.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what was the Netflix experience like working with them?
Absolutely phenomenal.
They're the best.
They are incredibly filmmaker friendly, supportive, collaborative, just really a pleasure. We had a great time with them.
I mean, and for being such a big studio, it was such a personalized experience. I mean, we can always, you get them on the phone on a Sunday morning, or we'll be, on a different time zone. They always are available for us, always there to meet challenges with love and positivity, and really, really helped to realize our vision of the film.
Well, again, as I said, it's a really fun film. The movie is called Falling for Christmas. It's on Netflix. People can stream it and watch it right now. Janeen and Michael, thank you very much for taking the time to be on the program with us, and have a great Christmas yourself.
Oh, thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Thank you so very much.
Janeen and Michael Damian, who produced and directed the Netflix movie Falling for Christmas. Catch it. It's a lot of fun. By the way, we mentioned that Michael played Danny Romalotti on CBS's The Young and the Restless for 18 years. Well, since we're talking about Christmas, here's a little holiday secret that I can share for Y&R fans. Danny Romalotti will return to Genoa City for Christmas, and the rock star will have a secret performance as well. That will be on the air on December 22nd. But hey, you didn't hear that from me. You're listening to the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder.
Portions of the Stuff File program are available to you via Audia.io. At Audia, you'll find hundreds and hundreds of Stuff File program interviews going all the way back to 2009. That's Audia, AUDEA.io. There's more Stuff File program coming your way right after this break.
Hey, how would you like to become a patron of the Stuff File program? It's easy to do. By going to patreon.com and becoming a patron, you help to make this show an even bigger and better radio experience. And if you become a regular patron, as a Patreon reward, I'll share with you an electronic version of my book, Great Conversations, my interviews with two men on the moon and a galaxy of stars. You've heard me say on many occasions about the myriad of celebrities I've had the chance to talk to that are contained in my book, which is published by Bear Manor Media. You've also heard me mention that some of the celebrities in my book, and many others, can be heard on our page at patreon.com. If you've been on the fence about joining Patreon, let me try to pull you over to our side. Join Patreon and claim your copy of Great Conversations, my interviews with two men on the moon and a galaxy of stars. Sign up at patreon.com/The Stuff File program.
Choosy mothers choose The Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder. If your mother didn't choose it for you, well, I guess she just doesn't love you.
And still to come on the program, we'll talk to Marc Hartzman about alien encounters. Plus, we do indeed have an Idiot of the Day coming your way, but I got one more Stuff File news story to share with you right here, right now. In Tennessee, it is legal to collect roadkill for consumption. In fact, the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency, or TWRA, encourages people to take home animals found on the road with some strict rules in place. For example, deer and turkey must be reported to TWRA or local police within 48 hours of collection. But bears, on the other hand, require that a TWRA agent come out and issue you a receipt for a black bear. That's because the bear population is monitored and the TWRA takes a tooth from the animal for the purpose of dating it. In addition, tracking bear kills helps the agency prevent the sale of bear parts on the black market. Said spokesperson Matthew Cameron, "It's highly illegal to sell any kind of bear parts in the state of Tennessee, but it does happen. Small animals such as rabbits, raccoons, squirrels, and skunks can be collected without notifying anyone." Okay, by the way, sidebar. It's amazing what you can do these days with an air fryer. Just saying. Anyway, let's get to our last guest here in this edition of the Stuff File program, shall we? Marc Hartzman, the curator of WeirdHistorian.com, is back with a story for the month of November. And this time around, he brings us the story of a man who claims to have had several encounters with beings from other planets. Mark joins us via Skype from New York. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Peter. How are you?
Just tickety-boo. Thanks very much for being on the program with us once again. So, who is this guy and what time period does he hail from?
So his name was George Adamski, and this was something happening in the 1950s. And just for a little context, the 1950s, pretty much that full decade, there was a group of people known as contactees. And these were people who claimed to have contact, as you said, with people from other planets. And this kind of stemmed off of the UFO phenomena, the flying saucer craze that started in 1947, when the first flying saucer, that term was coined, became huge all across America, all over the world, actually. People had sightings of flying saucers. So naturally, people started meeting people from these flying saucers and having these amazing, fantastic stories of the beings that they met, oftentimes from Venus. And so George Adamski was one of the most vocal and popular contactees, and he claimed to have met a Venusian on November 20th, 1952, almost exactly 70 years ago.
You say they're almost always from Venus, so a planet closer to the sun as opposed to any of the planets further from the sun.
Yeah, well, close to us. They're neighbors, not too far.
Yeah, but so is Mars.
Yeah, well, so we'll get to it, but Adamski did meet a Martian as well.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't just Venusians.
So he was equal opportunity then.
Yeah, but Venusians were popular. There was another contactee who claimed to have married a Venusian and had Venusian children. So it almost seemed like some of these contactees were one-upping each other. They were traveling in these different spaceships. They were, obviously, as I mentioned, getting married to Venusians. It's almost like each one tried to have a bigger, better adventure than the other. But like I said, Adamski was probably the most vocal of them. He had very popular books that were very big sellers. Tens of thousands of copies were selling. He lectured across the United States about his encounters and what they meant. He really made a career out of this.
Isn't it almost frightening to know or to think how popular he could have been in this day and age with social media?
True. He could have, had all kinds of followers. Of course, he probably would have had a lot more competition, too, to stand out.
That is true, too.
Yeah, but Adamski had first said he spotted some kind of giant spacecraft during a meteor shower in 1946, actually before flying saucer was coined. So he didn't really think too much of it. But he later heard some military officers at his little restaurant he had in Palomar Mountain, California, which is situated kind of between Los Angeles and San Diego. This was a restaurant he had basically at the bottom of a mountain, and atop that mountain there was a big observatory. So he would look up at the stars with his small telescope, but if he said he was looking from Palomar, people assumed he was talking about the observatory and that he was someone who was an actual astronomer. So he kind of gained a little bit of credibility just based on his location. But when these military officers that he claimed said that there was more to the sightings that he was having than he may have thought, he started to get really curious and began looking at the skies more. And soon enough, he starts seeing hundreds of lights scurrying about in the sky, and believes he's seeing all kinds of flying saucers. So he's all in at this point.
Now, is he really all in? Or maybe I should ask this question later. Is he really all in, or is he a charlatan?
Well, I would say that he was a charlatan, I would say, but he was all in on his being a charlatan.
Oh, okay.
If that makes sense.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I mean, maybe he actually believed some of this stuff, but, eventually it was figured out. People said he was, faking stuff. And you see these pictures of the UFOs. If you look up George Adamski, you'll see the pictures right away. And people claimed it looks like it was a chicken brooder that he was, stringing up and making it look like a saucer. But he gathered 6 of his friends, and they drove off into the desert looking for a UFO, and eventually they come across a mothership, and it seems to be following them as if it's communicating with them, and kind of leads them down the road and then whips off into the distance. And they wait for a little while, and then he sees a scout ship coming out from this mothership, and eventually he sees a being off in the distance about a quarter mile off the road by the ravine, waving at him. And so he wanders over alone, not with his friends, mind you. His friends have to stand and wait. I don't know why, but they weren't allowed to come. So Adamski goes over and he meets this guy. This is November 20th, 1952. And he meets this man who is a Venusian, and he knows this because they communicate through telepathy, in case you were wondering.
Okay.
Along with hand gestures. I
was wondering a lot. Yes, but go ahead.
Yeah, how does one know they're from Venus?
Yeah.
Yeah, telepathy, of course. So this man looks very humanoid. He looks just like a human. In fact, Adamski found him to be a beautiful person. He said he was wearing a tight-fitting one-piece suit, and he said he looked human, but even better. A quote from him said, "The beauty of his form surpassed anything I had ever seen."
Yeah, because a lot of humans cannot really pull off a one-piece tight fit suit. So
that's true. You do have.
He's got to be spectacular.
Yeah. Got to have a good figure.
Yeah.
And he loved this man's hair, which I thought was fun. He was really smitten. He said that it was sandy in color and hung in beautiful waves to his shoulders, glistening more beautifully than any woman's I have ever seen. So again, the Venusians were apparently a more advanced race of beings than we are. And what he learned from this Venusian, this was a common theme among the contactees in the 50s. Keep in mind, it's the 50s, it's the Cold War era. The atomic bomb is relatively new, ended World War II. So all these things were kind of going on in society and culture. So the Venusians were basically here visiting Earth because they were disturbed by these goings-on with the atomic weapons and the danger of the atomic age. They were worried about our planet and maybe the state of the solar system in general with the weaponry that we had. So the Venusians were here visiting to warn us about the dangers of the atomic age and atomic weapons. Of course, they couldn't just announce themselves to everybody because they thought people would panic and, as he said, might be torn to pieces by the Earth people if such public landings were attempted.
So they were looking to come to the planet because they were disturbed by what was going on here, and they definitely met disturbed people.
Yes, but, granted, these Venusians weren't really here. But to Adamski's credit, the message was a good one. So if this was just his way of spreading the message of the dangers of atomic weapons, that's not such a bad thing, right? They are bad. No one's going to disagree with that. So it may have just been his way of sort of trying to warn people of the dangers and for us to try to find a more peaceful solution and a better way to live here on Earth. And using aliens, which was so popular at the time, flying saucers again, in the news all the time, especially in 1952, many sightings in that year. We can get into those stories another time, but this was, again, a hot topic at the moment and a way for him to deliver that message.
So was he, for lack of a better term, found out at any point? Or did he go to his grave being heralded as the person who, hung out with people from Venus?
He pretty much did go to his grave that way. I mean, people certainly spoke up, but he didn't give up on this. It's not like he said, "Okay, you got me," and stopped. He was still planning tours around, lecture tours around the country and the world when he died in 1965, I believe. Yeah, 1965 he passed away. So, from 52 to 65, that's another 13 years. He didn't stop at all. In fact, he even had a royal audience in Queen Juliana in the Netherlands, who was listening to all of his stories and buying these tales of visiting spacemen. So this was definitely a thing he kept going. Like I mentioned, he met a Martian. Eventually, he was at a hotel in L.A. and he met a Martian and a Saturnian, some guy from Saturn, and they had lunch. They had apple pie, which I loved, that they sat there and ate apple pie together. And eventually, he got to go aboard the Martian and Saturnian spaceships, and he could fly around with them and met different people from those planets. He met a 1,000-year-old elder who seemed to know all the ways of the world and have lots of wisdom to impart into Adamski. So many great things happened. This guy had all kinds of amazing adventures, or so he said.
But I'm betting that he never spoke to anyone at NASA.
No, I don't think he had a great relationship with NASA. Didn't really help further any relations with our space program.
Quelle surprise. So, did he have a lot of followers? And when he passed away, did anybody follow up on what he was talking about, or did it just peter out with his demise? And or I should ask the question: did he really die, or did he just leave the planet?
Well, that's a good question. He left the planet. I guess the question is in which way did he leave? Permanently, or just did his spirit go to some other planet? That I suppose we can't know for sure. But
well,
I would say that he definitely had followers. Like I said, he had tours still planned in the mid-'60s.
Well, a follow-up to what happened to George, Mark, I smell another book here.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this guy was amazing. And he wrote several books on his adventures, which are just filled with these amazing stories. But this will all be coming. I'll have more on George Adamski and a lot of the other contactees in my upcoming book, which is called We Are Not Alone, coming out next year.
Oh, we have to talk about that when it comes out.
Yeah, lots of good stuff in that.
Excellent. Well, Mark, thank you very much for being on the program with us once again.
Glad to be here. Thanks.
I'll keep my eye out for Venusians.
You should.
Marc Hartzman, the curator of WeirdHistorian.com. He's the author of several books, his most recent one being Chasing Ghosts, a tour of our fascination with spirits and the supernatural. You can go to my website at thestufffile.com, check out the show number for this program, which is number 0693, and you'll find the link to Mark's site, plus links to either Amazon.com or Amazon.ca, where you can order his book directly. You're listening to the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder. It's that moment you've all been waiting for, boys and girls. It's time now for the Idiot of the Day.
And now it's time for the strange things adults do. The Stuff File presents the Idiot of the Day.
A thief in Montana clearly isn't the sharpest knife in the drawer. A suspect allegedly stole a bright pink 2022 Kia Sportage adorned with the advertisement for a local radio station. The commercial vehicle was allegedly used for a personal trip to a church, and the driver decided to smoke a few cigarettes along the way, leaving the vehicle stinking of tobacco. Josh Rath of Mix 91.1, a staff member from Town Square Media, shared a photo that his friend sent him via Snapchat of the company vehicle about 30 kilometers away from the office. Rath thought it was a staff member driving the car until a call came in about someone honking the horn, reportedly at a church in Ballantyne. The suspect was caught but released because the jail in Billings was too full. Now, I've spent plenty of time in my day driving either a fully adorned radio station or a television station vehicle, and nothing sticks out like one of these puppies, especially if it's painted bright pink. So why, oh why, would you expect to take one of these things for a joyride and not get caught? One reason, and one reason only: you're an idiot!
Gee, I'm only a kid, but even I know you're an idiot.
And that's it for this edition of the Stuff File program, number 0693. Hope you enjoyed it. The website is thestuffile.com, and once again, stuff is spelled S-T-U-P-H, where you'll find information and links on all of our guests by going to the weekly Stuff File page. Just look for the corresponding program number, and once again, that's 0693. Email me at peter@thestufffile.com. You can also find me on Facebook and Twitter as PA Holder. And don't forget to check us out on patreon.com, where you can become a patron of the program. Hope to see you back here for our next show on the air, online, or as a download. We're coming to you from everywhere, including KDXRadio.com, TrueTalkRadio.com, over the air on World FM in New Zealand, MediaCore in Singapore, WLSLLP FM in Dade City, Florida, CKUW FM in Winnipeg, CFMU in Hamilton, CKLU in Sudbury, Local 107.3 FM in St. John, CHSR in Fredericton, and also streaming on just about any streaming service your little heart desires. That's it. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder, a presentation of Flying Fish Communications. Let me leave you with these words of wisdom. Never ever juggle ice picks while standing on your waterbed.